Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to First Center for Spiritual Living. I'm happy to see all the, well, I know there's a lot of people. I can't see all the shiny faces, but I see a fairly full screen there. So welcome to our self-healing class. Most of you are here. You've been here many times. Some of you are new. I'm the pastor here at the center. We will send you each week this Zoom link. Zoom is the best way to watch us because after each lesson or gathering, there's an opportunity for you to interact with us. This week, I learned this afternoon, we've had 300 people sign up to our Zoom calls, which is really amazing that we're reaching so many people all over the country because after our presentations, these lessons go out to Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and we're very happy with the results we saw this week. We also have a annual, we'll call it our, it's our membership drive going on right now. It's only $50 for the year. And with it, you get a counseling session from me, and you also have 3 of our favorite talks that are sent to you by email. So please join up with Jimmy, send us a message, and we'll show you how to do that. You're all invited. And if you do opt to be a member in that way, Jimmy will also set up the coaching or counseling appointment, however you prefer to call it. It's basically a call with me, usually, or possibly Reverend Judith if you would like to talk with one of the female staff. So let's talk about Louise Hay. Most of her source material came from the Science of Mind textbook, which was written by Ernest Holmes. Thursday night is our Hay class. Sometimes I call it the Hay and Holmes class, where we really give you the fundamentals of the Science of Mind teaching in a way that most everyone can take in. So this is every Thursday night, and tonight's class comes from a seminar that I did a few years ago. And we're always working with loving the self, and we're going to explore that and give you a task for this week to practice at home and just remind you of some things that are always important. When you're loving yourself, it's nothing to do about vanity. It's not about how my hair looks, how my face looks, or anything like that. What we're talking about when it's this subject is developing a greater appreciation for ourselves and who we really are, okay? I mean, I'll tell you straight up. We are individualizations of spirit or of source. And I know a lot of you don't think of yourself as an individualization of God, but that is in fact who you are and what you are. So we want to take a pause always and remember that divine fact. I am as God created me, or a source created me. And you're holy and you're wonderful, and slow down a little bit long enough to remind yourself of that. Little exercise from a workshop. I'm just going to offer it as a suggestion. You certainly don't have to do it, but it might be beneficial, right? This would be for you this week to take a little bit of time to write yourself a little bit of a letter. We'll call it a love letter or an appreciation letter. I would suggest you put it on your coffee table and work at it a little bit and take a break. Maybe you pick it up the next day, but spend a little bit of time, throughout the week. And during this exercise, reflect on your personal growth. You think of yourself as since you're a little boy or a little girl, the things you've overcome and how strong you have become, because you surely have become more. You're always more. You may not see, you think in terms of like, oh my God, I'm screwing up, what I've lost, my life. You can really think of your life in terms of your losses. You can do it that way. And it really won't take you where you want to go. So this exercise is a very empowering thing to do. I challenge you to take up the challenge and do it, because I know it will help you. I can't do it for you. So the exercise is to reflect on the growth and acknowledge the strength and the growth and the things you've overcome and the things you've learned. I know that most of us are busily running through our lives, and it's really interesting times that we live in. We've been hit with pandemics, businesses have closed, our lives have been upended, and I hear people, I know, the hurting that is going on. We experienced it here at the center. We've doubled down and we've grown ourselves to numbers that we've never seen before because we've had to grow. We are capable, all of us, of doing amazing things, if we practice. We practice this teaching. When you're living this way as a religious scientist and you're practicing, you're approaching life with positive expectancy, you're holding up the world in a good way. You're holding up the world with your encouragement. You're holding up the world with your forgiveness. You're holding up the world with your love and your support. The thing is, we forget the good that we do, and we quickly start going into what's wrong and what's missing. And as soon as you start to see yourself in that place where you're talking about what's wrong with myself, my health, my life, and what's missing, then in fact you've lost your way. Then you're in the weeds. You've become the prodigal child. You got it all inside of you, but you forget. When we forget. And so the last thing we want to do is beat ourselves up for forgetting. But the first thing we want to do is just, keep getting back to the place where we're practicing. From Louise Hay, her book, there was a song Hal Joseph sang, Remembering and Forgetting. It's the game that we play as people. If you can stay plugged into a positive message like we do every Thursday or every Sunday morning, we will be one of your great allies, because we're going to every week keep reminding you of how great you are, how wonderful you are, how supplied you are, and how you have everything you need. And we'll keep encouraging you to step out of the story of ain't it awful, you know what I mean, where you're talking about everything that's wrong or what's missing. Because if you keep nurturing that conversation, that's a conversation that gets you absolutely nowhere you want to go. So this exercise that I'm encouraging people to do this week, I hope you do it. And then next week we can talk about it for those of you who want to share. And I want to make sure, because sometimes people they're afraid of sharing. The sharing we do here is always to be inclusive, to include you. And please never feel obligated to share. You could always say, my name is Greg and I'm in New York, nice, thank you, or you could pass. We are never trying to get into anybody's business. We're attempting to develop a supportive atmosphere for one another. We're now meeting back in person. We have Gabe with us tonight. Every week we seem to have a few more coming back in person. We do have a party we're planning, which will be for June 12th at the building. So anybody who's in New York, please come on in for that Sunday morning, and afterwards we'll have a little bit of food, a little bit of fellowship, and we might have a little bit of music. And one thing's for certain, it will be a good time. So I'm kind of like an old timer here. I've been with Louise Hay and Science of Mind for a long time. When the book came out, You Can Heal Your Life, in I think it was like 1984, 85, I started facilitating these groups in 1987, just about as soon as it was known anywhere. And I was facilitating these classes in Florida, and I started in a Unity church. And over the years, I kept teaching it, presenting it in hospitals and treatment centers and spiritual centers. And because of that book, it was my introduction to Science of Mind, right? I was drawn to the ministry, and I've never stopped presenting this material. There's an expression that most of us who've been around a while have heard, and it is this: you teach what you need to learn. And I suppose that's true for everybody. We all could learn to be kinder in some way. We all could learn to be kinder to ourselves and more loving. It was Louise Hay herself who said, self-acceptance and self-approval in the now are the keys to all positive changes. Now think about that. Self-acceptance. That's me with all my miserable attitudes when I'm miserable. Self-acceptance and self-approval. That's even when you've made mistakes. Even with your attitudes and your mistakes, it's about accepting yourself and approving of yourself in this moment. She said that's the key to all positive changes, because if you're hanging on to what's missing and what's wrong and what you've done and all of the stuff, and if you're living in loss and who's hurt you and who you've hurt, it becomes virtually impossible for you to move forward. It's very tough to move forward when you're in grief and you're in remorse. And so we're wanting you to begin to move that and let go of all of that. And again, that's a good one to write down. Self-acceptance and self-approval in the now are the keys to all positive changes. If you're committed to this process, and if you stay with it enough just to tune in here, because we'll remind you, and eventually you'll want to, if you're like everybody else, you'll want to practice it more. You'll want to study it more. You know, you will begin to want to be around positive people with positive messages, because the thing is that will open up your world in surprising ways. You will notice as you practice this teaching opportunities that you've never seen before, because you're opening up your mind, your heart, and your world. As you release doubt, you'll open yourself up to wholeness and happiness and greater health. So we want to let go of this stuff so we can interact more fully with life and one another. Louise Hay wrote, "Self-love makes the world go round." And then she stated profoundly, "I'm not a healer. I don't heal anyone myself." And, you know, I've heard people call some of these ministers healers. They've even called me a healer, and I think, who, me? You know, it isn't about the minister, right? We're here just teaching you about a process, and we're teaching you that you are a part of it, that you are one with it. I think of myself, Louise Hay said, as a stepping stone on someone's pathway to self-discovery and self-love. Likewise, here, we create a space each and every Thursday and Sunday where people can learn, or maybe you're going to learn for the first time who you are here, or you'll be reminded if you can stay tuned in. I know there's a person or a couple of people now who are setting their iPhones to remind themselves every half an hour or something, an affirmation, like I am as God created me, or I am whole and complete. If you could remind yourself of some of these truths throughout your day, your days would start to be much more wonderful. If you could remind yourself of how wonderful and powerful and good that you are. So we're always asking people every Thursday night to be mindful of the conversation they're having. And you know my little phrase, the conversation you're having with the most important person in the world. And I say that because in your world, rightfully so, you are the most important person in your world. And it's really important to have a elevated conversation. If you come here often or regularly, you'll start to hear me say these things over and over again. And I'll ask the question Thursday night always, what has the conversation been like this way? I'll look at Judith, and she's always going to say good, because she's been practicing it as long as I have. But the thing is, if I'm going to be honest, my internal dialogue is not always what I would like it to be. So it just tells me there's more work to be done. And the thing about those of us who stay at it, we know when it goes south, and so we don't like how it feels, and we quickly get back into we release the need for this situation, and you go right back into I am supplied and supported, and we have our processes, our prayer process, our affirmative prayer. So we call this the most important conversation. That's the one that's inside of you when nobody's looking, right? No one's watching. Because that conversation is creating your very tomorrow, this weekend. It'll create your month to come. So when you hear me talk about the conversation, you know the one I'm talking about is the one you're having with yourself. It's not the polite one where you're all dressed up and you're interacting with people socially. It's the conversation you're having when you're all by yourself. you know, and when you understand how powerful this is, you know, when you're home and you're alone, or if you're fearful or you're worried, any of that stuff, it's creative. All that thought is creative. So, you know, it's challenging, but, you know, it's the only person who's going to change that conversation around is going to be myself in my case, and you in your case. As I was preparing today, I thought, no one really probably understands. Running a spiritual center is one of the most challenging jobs that you could ever imagine, because you're dealing with so many different things, from the building to the people to the membership to the challenges. There's a lot. And the thing is to keep yourself up and know that every conversation is important, and that everybody's doing the best that they can with what they've got. It's really, it's a lot. But that's the task for all of us. So I'm no different than anybody else here. All of us are overcoming different things in our lives. Certainly, you know, we're all learning from everything. That's if you're utilizing the teaching. If you've been learning to live the affirmative life, then your life is going to become easier, because you're not going to give in to fear as much. We keep coming back to certain truths here. And when we are loving ourselves enough, when we stop being critical, you know, things start to get easier. We stop criticizing ourselves. We stop criticizing others, because it doesn't help. If you're being, you know, witchy and critical, it really doesn't help. It just makes you more miserable. It doesn't help when we're doing it to ourselves, and it doesn't help when we're doing it to others. One of the fundamentals of this class is wherever you find another person on this journey of life, you're meeting another soul. You're meeting another spiritual being who is really doing the best that he or she can. Now, you might not like how they're showing up at all, you know, but spiritually, we really want to understand this person, whoever they are, and yourself included, are doing the best you can at that time. And so we all understand that here, thankfully. It's important to bring into our awareness that whoever they are, wherever they are in consciousness, and however they're acting, even if they're acting in a way against you, they are where they are by virtue of consciousness. I usually present it this way. I learned this from the Celestine Prophecy years ago, a book that I liked. All of us are becoming more than what we were before. At least we're becoming more aware. And as you're able, you know, we're growing and we're evolving. If you look back at your life even 5 years ago, certainly 10 or 15 years ago, you'll see how your views have all expanded. Your views about life and about people, how it's expanded. You'll look at your childhood differently. We've all been on a pathway of learning. In the book, The Celestine Prophecy, they talk about taking the long view. If you can reflect on that a little bit, you'll see the hand of the divine or God that's always been in your life. There's always been that which is within you that's attempting to get your attention and bring you to a higher place. The thing is, in this teaching, though, we can engage it and we can work with it. Ernest Holmes said there's power for good in the universe, and so you can use it. You can make your life so much easier. You can, you know, you can engage it, you can use it. It doesn't mean you get a free pass. It doesn't mean you don't have to walk through your own life and your own, you know, deal with your own stuff. But when you partner up with Spirit, in the sense if you bring Spirit into the equation and realize you're supplied and supported, as you practice this teaching, doorways will open for you. David Walker, who was one of the past presidents of religious science, used to say, we open up avenues in mind to the good that's all. See, the good is here. The kingdom is here. The good, the God, it's all here. But we don't see it and we don't recognize it, because we're like the horse with the blinders on. We're keeping on doing what we're doing the way, you know, we're attached to have things be a certain way. So as you come into this teaching, you lay down your arms and you forgive yourself. You forgive others, and you realize, I've done the best I can with the information, the understanding, the awareness I have. And you extend that same idea to every human being you meet. So then you can have really, truly, when we say namaste, you know, you meet somebody and you salute the divinity in that person because you know that every encounter is a holy encounter. You drop the story. So that's one of the great lessons of Louise Hay. She'll say, stop. Stop in the name of love. Stop the nonsense. Stop the garbage. Stop all that nonsense, you know, because that stuff is not of God. That stuff's not divine, you know. So you have the ability to put yourself into a different place. Love holds no grievances. You've heard that before. That comes from the Jan Pileski work. So wherever we're doing that towards ourselves and others, we want to stop that. Connecting with this group on Tuesdays and Thursdays can help you bring peace and harmony into your life. And you very quickly will start to lighten your load, and things will get much better very quickly. Ernest Holmes called it the affirmative life. If you're learning to live the affirmative life, you're looking to see the good in any and every situation. That's a task. That's not easy. Looking to see the good in any situation. We are the lifters. That's what we do. We are the champions and the cheerleaders. We're not the leaners. We're not the people who are the drags on life. We're the people who are here who have the consciousness to lift. So when things are going south and things don't seem to be working for you, there's your glorious opportunity to say, oh my goodness, there must be a pony in this thing here someplace. The opportunity is to try to see the good in it and know that whatever is happening is there for you, and it will lift you to a higher place. Another piece of advice for this lesson, because this is actually a seminar, I'll have to stop someplace along the line, is please don't make your life about the other person. I know people do that all the time. I've done it myself, especially when I was younger. You know, you're in relationships, you're blaming everybody and all that stuff. Don't make your life about the other person if you can. People who are in this teaching usually, if you stay in this teaching, you really love this teaching, you start to practice this teaching, are not terribly interested in what other people are saying, right? They're not preoccupied with what other people are doing. As students here, we are preoccupied with loving ourselves and paying attention to what we are each individually creating. We're paying attention to what moves us and inspires us. And we're learning to pay attention to our creations. By that I mean, I'm learning to pay attention to how I'm creating this day, I'm creating this week. And I might even take a look at what I've created this past week. I'll say, oh my God, I want to do this differently, right? So it's better to be focusing on your own spiritual business than be focusing on other people. I acknowledge and I know that I have my own filters. We all have our filters, and that means I see my life through my own lens of experience, and all of you do as well. So we have history. That means his story. You have some stories. Some people call it prejudice. Other people call it BS, or blind spots. You have stuff. And it's tough to see people rightly when you have a lot of stuff. It can be very difficult to be in a new moment with people. Because if you're carrying a past with people, it's tough to be in the present with them. If we were able to be in a new moment, reconciliations of every kind would be easier. A lot of people who are divorced would still be married. But, you know, people carry stuff, and you keep carrying it, and you know, if you're caught up in who's right and who's wrong and all of that, you're caught up in division. So you can't force another person to love you or like you, and all of that, but you can heal within. You can be quick to forgive, and you can be, release the need to hold any kind of resentment, because I can promise you that will only ever hurt you. I wanted to mention tonight, I was reflecting on this. I was brought up in parochial schools. I remember from those messages the importance of loving everybody, your brothers and your sisters as yourself. And that's such an important lesson of extending love. And I don't mean mushy love, it's just the acknowledgement. Everybody, this person can act like an enemy, act like a fool, but they're human beings doing the best that they can with what they have. These messages that I got in parochial school are universal messages. and they are to extend love to your sisters and brothers and extend love to yourself. Take nothing personally is a very tall order. I found that's one of the toughest orders of all. I learned that one from the 4 agreements. Take nothing personally. The spiritual greats that we all know of, when we've read of, eventually all got to that place in their evolution where they take nothing personally. Where they understand that could be Buddha, it could be Christ, it could be any of them. They're not taking things personally. Where we learn to live in a world where we have no sense that there's anything or anyone against us, because we're always practicing the teaching where we are extending love to everyone and all the time. We are certain of the fact, the truth, that each person that we encounter is a spiritual being who is unfolding in majesty and greatness, and we know that is true for ourselves as well. There's not a spot where God is not. There's not a person that's not a spiritual being. So we're going back to the idea that people are expressing themselves always at their level of knowing. If you've been through some tough circumstances recently, or if you've been through some tough circumstances with someone, if you've been through a tough time and you've been dealing with painful situations, and if you're preoccupied with what people have said and done to you, this is some time to clear it up. This is some time to work on forgiveness, because wherever you're hanging on to any of that type of thought or energy, it's holding yourself back. We want to get to the point where we're not taking things personally. I do acknowledge it's a tremendous amount of work, but I'll tell you it pays off like nothing else. If you can release the need to be angry, release the need to be critical, release the need to hold a resentment, you get all the benefits, freedom and happiness. So I think I'm going to stop with the question, because I would otherwise go into another 15 minutes here. So this week, all of you who are practicing, all of you who are tuning in, what's it been like being you this week? What has your consciousness been like? Have you been in connection? Have things been going well for you? Or have you forgotten how wonderful you are? And whatever it is you'd like to share, of course, please share. If you're new and you'd like to say your name, and I'm from Sarasota or New Orleans or wherever you're from, that's great too. So we'll turn it over to you all now. Thank you.